save some bandwidth.
Hello and welcome to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn's podcast. I am your host and producer, Dr. Jacalyn Podcast, and with me today is Matthew Warzel. He is a certified professional resume writer. He's also a career coach, and he is the founder of MJW Careers. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to speak with your audience. I hope everybody's doing well today.
Yes, I hope the same for them also. So, Matt, you are down in North Carolina, is that correct?
I am. I'm on the coast, and you might have seen us recently in the hurricane news. We kind of make our way in and out of that, and not to be taken that lightly as a subject, but we definitely, we're about 2 a year. So, yeah, I'm right on the coast if people know where Wilmington is. They made Cape Fear the movie as based off of it. Yeah. And
that's a great movie.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's so funny because now, growing up watching that movie, you're like, oh, that's a neat little town. Or like Dawson's Creek, I always thought was neat when I was like in high school watching that. And then I'm like, oh, I'm living here now. It's so bizarre. But it looks like it does on the film.
Guess what? Maybe you'll make your own movie. You do some acting, right?
Yeah, I did. I self-produced a feature film. We just got distribution a month ago or 2 months ago. So you can see it on Walmart and Amazon and all that other stuff.
Congratulations. What's it called?
Thank you. It's called Dale Archdale. It's a redneck slapstick comedy, rated R. So any youngsters out there, do not go Google. But yeah, it's just kind of it's kind of like a Joe Dirt meets Eastbound and Down. Yeah, I've kind of had two careers my whole life since graduating school. One in HR. That's what we kind of say we are in terms of resume writers, career coaches. We're in HR. Although recently I learned we're also in human services. So I'm proud to say I'm also in human services. And that's by the experts up top. So I've kind of had this HR thing and mixed with this entertainment business thing. Because when I got out of school, I wanted to make advertisements. I wanted to be a copywriter. That was like what I wanted to do. I wanted to make Bud Light commercials. And to do that, you just don't say that to people and then they're going to let you do it. So I realized how kind of like difficult it really was of a nut to crack. And I thought, well, if I'm spinning my wheels trying to get these advertising roles, I might as well just go for the ultimate dream, which would be making movies. But I'm like, I'm crazy enough. I'm 23, whatever. So I started doing, acting classes and improv classes, and I started doing stand-up and got an agent and started getting roles. I got my first role in iCarly on Nickelodeon back in like mid 2000s. And so it's been interesting though. So I do that at night. And then during the day, I try to tell people how to get a career going.
Oh my goodness, that's incredible.
It's fun. I mean, I'm busy.
You know what? I always thought it would be incredible to be an actor. I just want to make sure I have this right. Is it DALEARCHDALE?
That's correct. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch your feature film.
That is awesome. Yeah. If you go on Amazon on your Fire Stick, you'll pull it up.
Okay. I'm going to do that. So let's talk a little bit more about what you're doing because it's really fascinating. First of all, I just want to start with the fact that you have so many recommendations and followers on social media, which in and of itself, it's difficult to get one person to follow you, let alone you have 9,000 LinkedIn followers. Is that true? Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm at about 9,200. And I mean, I've actually been networking with folks though in my industry that are at like 200,000 and stuff like that. So, I know it's like, LinkedIn is a different kind of social media altogether. Obviously it's the professional one. You keep it professional, you network like you're a professional. You don't get very personal on it like a Facebook, but, so I think, I'm not saying it might be easier to get followers on LinkedIn, but I'm willing to take a bet it's easier than like Twitter or like Instagram where you're like just struggling. So I don't want to like knock LinkedIn for that sense, but I feel like it's almost like if you accept a friend request, they're following you automatically. So I feel like it's kind of one of those kind of things, but I'm more proud of the recommendations because that I had to work for in terms of like follow up, do my due diligence to get people to say, hey, this guy was pretty good. So, and I'll just say that for anybody out there who who runs a business, who knows, recommendations are important. If you neglect them, you'll struggle way more. So start planting the seeds of getting people to come back and giving you input, whether it's, I try to give people like, $5, I'll say, this is one part of my spiel, like, hey, I'm glad you like the resume and the career coaching solutions. Can you leave me a review on XXXXX, and I list my things, my sites, and most of them will do it and won't even ask for the $5. They're like, yeah, it's fine. And so little incentives like that. So I literally went from, I think I might've had like 100 some recommendations, 3 years ago, probably, until, now 700 and I think 14 or something. And it's just because of diligence and follow-up and having them kind of know that it's important for my business, and that, hey, not only that, you can always come back to me to ask me a question for free and give you advice for free. So kind of be a collaborator of their kind of professional side of life. So like how you would be a life coach, they would come to me for any time they have anything career related. And that's kind of on purpose. I want to do that so it's more of a long-term relationship rather than a evil need that comes around once in a while. Because that's what I think a lot of us resume writers get a reputation of. It's like a mechanic. You're never going to go hang out with the person at the shop. You only go there because you need them, or her. But it's like, that's kind of how resumes are. No one's coming here to buy the new shiny Apple product. They're here because they got to get into some other role, and this is a need.
Well, I wish that our listeners could see my face, because I am literally speechless. I have met a lot of people. I have never met anyone who has anywhere near the number of recommendations that you have or followers. It's incredible. So kudos to you, because that truly is a gift. And I'm hoping that people will reach out to you to find out a little bit more about how you do that.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yes. So as you know, we're in this period of pandemic, which I think we're stretching to the 7th month. And obviously, a lot of businesses, large and small, and individuals have been affected in terms of businesses downsizing, going out of business, transitioning into something else, individuals losing their jobs, being laid off, maybe not having the option to go to work because a family member is sick. What are you seeing in terms of trends during this pandemic and how it's impacting careers?
I am absolutely seeing an uptick in career changers. As we kind of had our pre-call, we were skimming up on it, but I'll go back into it again. I have not seen as many career changers, honestly, as this past few months that I have probably seen in the last couple of years, even, because, I think people are realizing when you're laid off, you always have that notion of, okay, either you're going to, fight or flight kind of thing, where you're going to either, fight to, get back into the role right away and make it your 8-hour day looking for work, or you're going to kind of mosey along for a minute and then just hope, something bigger will take care of you eventually. And so and not to say they stay like that, but they might just have that inkling at first, like defeat and a little self-wallow, which obviously is not a problem. I always tell everyone, if you're laid off, take a week off, get a mind check, spend time with your family, make a plan, albeit prior to the pandemic, go on a vacation. Nowadays, all bets are off. You stay inside and you wallow. No, but just try to get in that idea that, okay, if everyone it's happened to almost everybody. I mean, literally, I've never seen anyone who's like, I guess there's some people, but a lot of people just get laid off a lot or transition. So you're not alone. And the biggest important thing to do is, again, strategy, as we were talking earlier, having a game plan that's going to be strategic. So first off, saying to yourself, what do you like to do? What do you want to do? What's logical that you can do? And try to literally put in columns, good and bad stuff all over the board, and see, is it better to go back to corporate or a federal role or wherever you were in? And so my to-dos are going to be job hunting driven. I'm going to go and get the resume. I'm going to go and get on the LinkedIn and use Indeed to look for jobs and network with hiring managers and recruiters and tap my network and do all the right things to get another job. Or here's a column B. Maybe you're going to be an entrepreneur. Maybe it's something you've been wanting to do. Everybody's kind of getting in on this gig economist train that we're on. And it's a wonderful thing to be a part of, that everything's virtual and you can actually be a freelancer and run your own business, from home, depending on what you're doing. Sometimes, given the circumstances, but you know, a lot of times if people want to pursue entrepreneurship, that could be the next route. So, you know, there's just all these things that open up to you when you're in a transition, and you really start to kind of self-internalize and reflect. And that's kind of what I found under my transitions are, you know, what the heck am I doing on this planet? You know, you start getting kind of almost existential. Mm-hmm. And I know mine impacted me for a handful of years. I battled pretty severe anxiety, which never had happened to me before. And I mean, it was crippling at one, you know, for a good few years there. And, you know, I leaned on a lot of my friends and family and started getting into good habits again. And I dropped 100 pounds and I started eating healthy and running and all this stuff. And it literally subconsciously worked, you know, it got me feeling better and back to myself. And just using these right things, this balance in life and doing all these nice things that you know you should be doing. Maybe it's spirituality you abandoned and now you got to go back to it, or, you know, just things that make you full and fulfilled, like that are all encompassing human. And I think if you get that part down, the professional stuff will come easier. I mean, you'll grind harder, you'll be more focused, you'll be up and at them quicker. You'll, you know, just things that kind of keep competitive and to kind of thrive in this new kind of world that you want to exist in. So again, there's a lot of hard work you got to put in no matter what, if you're going to go back to whatever you're doing, or if you want to start something new. But the key is in this transition, it's okay to question these things and to start trying to put a strategy together and open up some doors.
Thank you for sharing that. I love your transparency. The Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn brand is all about inspiring people with hope and telling stories of how they've overcome adversity. So you just shared with us that you had to overcome your anxiety, which is crippling, I'm sure. And you did it by doing good habits. So what about the fact that you've had this business of yours, MJW Careers, for 16 years, and people are now in 2020 during a pandemic contemplating starting their own business? What advice would you give them?
First, go for it, because it's extremely fulfilling once you start getting money for what you're doing. And I'm not going to cut it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, because you can't volunteer your whole life either. I mean, everyone's different. Don't get me wrong. You could come from some things and whatever, but let's say the average person needs to make an income. So don't feel like if you were to start something, how are you ever going to make money? It will come. And when it does, you'll be like, wow, this is great. So I would say the first step, if you are in transition, is like you had mentioned earlier, is about the unemployment thing. File for unemployment and take advantage of any incentives that you can to get some mailbox money, so to speak. So while you're trying to set up this new business, you know, you have something to pay the bills. I used Obama's 99-week plan for unemployment. That's what was the big thing after the meltdown. And luckily, I mean, that's like 2 years of free money. It wasn't a lot, but it got me and my wife by, you know, making bills. So I used that 2 years of kind of a buffer to start my business. And I say the first thing is just list out what you want to, what your services are going to be and what you think are your immediate benefits and value you can offer to someone who's wanting to pay you to do that. And start honing your product and knowledge of what you want to do. And then you can work through the stuff like, you know, and don't get overwhelmed, because obviously it can be overwhelming. Just keep a schedule and list, and you'll be fine. I mean, that's how I found that anything I'd done up in this point in my life, whatever it was, has been able to be completed because of that mentality, scheduling and calendaring and listing. But then after you kind of get your product offerings, your service offerings down, and knowing what you're going to, kind of give to the public, then you can start honing in on your communications. And that goes all the way over the board, how you're going to describe your products, how you're going to describe your brand, how you're going to describe your sales templates and that kind of thing. And after you get communications down, I think then you can start the nuts and bolts of, you know, all the major headers, marketing and sales plan. Where are you going to live? And don't worry about budget yet, because you can use a ton of free social media stuff to start drumming up a little bit of work and work for free. I mean, I've worked for free early on just to get people to use that to give me a testimonial or whatever, or a referral. So work a little bit for free if you have to. And then start hitting those headers, marketing, sales, accounting, you know, get your books set up. I just do simple Excel. Mine's very easy. I don't have a lot of ins and outs, other than, you know, what I spend and what I'm making. I don't have this overhead. That's what's nice about resume writing. My supplies is this computer. And then legal, get your stuff set up with the state. And then I guess, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like my knee-jerk reaction. I'm sure there's a couple other things, but just kind of getting the money stuff, the legal stuff, and how you're going to make money stuff down after you've got this whole idea of what you want to do, and then just start to execute. Get a website for $10 on GoDaddy, and they got these free, landing page setup things that you can do, and you can set up your website for very easy. You don't have to be technically savvy. Trust me. In the old days, I used to have to write HTML to develop my websites back in the 2000s, and it was just a necessary evil to get it going. But now, I mean, it's all just automated, plug and play. So use that to your advantage, and just again strategize what you want to do, and then itemize how you're going to get done and when you're going to get done. And eventually, you'll start reaching out to sources when you're researching of like the small business assistance centers around the country. There's always one in everyone's major city near them. So go and visit these people. They will tell you what to do if you're stuck at a certain spot of your business kind of opening. And then, yeah, just keep pounding. I mean, that's the biggest thing I see is a lot of people do it for a month and then that's it. And yeah, you just got to be tenacious because, it's you're going to have ups and downs with trying to do your own career, your own profession. And I'll have days still where if I don't get a sale, I'm just doing marketing and sales stuff till 1 a.m. It's innate in me. And so, whatever gets you excited, if it excites you enough, you'll stick with it and you will put the work in to make it successful. Because when it comes down to when you do your own thing, as much as you say, I can do my own thing, I run my own schedule. I mean, it gets to the point where you don't get those luxuries as much. But when it comes down to it, if you got to go and hang with your 2-year-old, when he's asking you to play something, I can just stop what I'm doing and go hang with him for an hour and then just come back and finish up and then work later that day. So that is the perk, is you can stop when you want to and kind of do your scheduling how you want to, so then you can still get things done, but also have a little fun while you're doing that.
Lots of great pointers in there. And I'm just laughing to myself because as a small business owner myself, I have literally been at this desk since 7 o'clock this morning. I have literally not left this room since 7 this morning. And I'm working so much harder than I worked in corporate America, but I absolutely love it. So that's what the passion is, right? The passion is what keeps you going. So we were talking about if you decide that you're going to start your own business. What if you have been working in corporate America and you get laid off and you want to go back to a corporate job? So we hire someone like you, and walk us through what that process looks like, if you would. What's it like to work with you?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing is you find out, do they know what they want to do next? Because if they do know, half the battle is already solved. Now it's, there's next steps after that. So and I'll go into that. But so you have the two things. One, do you know what you want to do? Yes or no. And if it's no, it's way more in depth. Now it's like we had mentioned, except for instead of starting your own business, list all these positives and negatives about what you want to do in corporate world. So maybe your accountant wants to go back to engineering like your old days, or you're a manager who wants to go back to contributor level, or vice versa. So if you don't know what you want to do, let's hone in on that first and make that positive negative list, the pros cons list. I'm big on lists like that, and see each type of profession within that realm, within that department, so to speak. So if you you're going to be in the technical department and you want to be in IT, okay, cool. That's your passion. Now, what do you want to do in IT? And if they say, I want to be a software engineer rather than a administrator, so that's the things we try to hone in on then, right? So now we're saying, okay, cool. We figured out what you want to do, or you come to me knowing what you want to do. Now the next step is, let's get all your accomplishments, your skills, any sort of methodologies and processes that relate to what you want to do, and get that as your main part of your resume. Get that into your resume. Make that the shining star. Make all that relatable stuff stand out. And I'm talking from the summary. You got a summary. You got some skills, which are like those buzzwords, and I'll get into that in a second. But summary, skills, accomplishments, experience, and then all your credential stuff, education, volunteer, whatever, all that stuff, affiliation. And so when you're lining all that up, every single line should be dedicated towards what you're trying to do. And that's where you hire someone like me as a resume writer, is we know how to weave these transferable things into sentences that make sense. They're condensed, they're impactful, they're accomplishments and value driven, accomplishments based and value driven. And they tell a story, they tell your messaging overall. And so if you can start thinking in terms of, while you're on the job, what am I doing that's really cool? What am I doing that's accomplishing things? Do I have any metrics that I'm tracking that I get reports on that I can use for my resume? How many people am I managing? How large of a budget am I managing? Things that make impact, because hiring managers do care about the bottom line. They always will. And they want you to be concerned with what your value is to them, and how you're going to show up and eliminate pain points, or you're going to reduce waste or enhance profitability or slash costs or complete more projects or acquire more customers or save a fledgling account that was worth $1 billion. Whatever your role is in that world, that's where we got to make you shine on the resume and say to these people that are reading, hey, look at me. I'm completely viable for this role. And here's how. And when they're looking at it, they're going to go, I have an opening here for production supervisor. All this stuff on here tells me that they're a production supervisor. Let's get him in for an interview, him or her. And that's all the resume is doing, is trying to get you into the interview room. So you can word it though, say like you weren't a production supervisor. Say like you're someone who wants to get in the supervisory role from a team member role. Well, then think of transferable stuff that you might have done in the past, even if it was within a group in school or wherever. Any sort of supervisory traits we can kind of flesh into the top that aren't necessarily going to be directly under a role that you never had, so you kind of be creative with where you're going to shift it in at the top of the resume. And the whole time they're reading this, you can use words like aspiring production supervisor, or utilizing some transferable, aptitude for this type of role, so you're making it known that, I never done this, but I'm really good at thinking knowing what I have to offer that make me maybe a viable candidate that can learn pretty quick, or at least, give me a chance to, figure out if this was the right role, depending on how much of a production person you needed, a production supervisor, how much experience they needed. So, I don't want to get long-winded, because this stuff can get really technical, and that's why they hire us. I mean, I used to not appreciate my role in the world as much as I have in the last few years, because now I'm starting to see like, no, we kick butt. Like, resume writers are good people. We're trying to get you work, and the way we weave your tale isn't going to be done by your friend who's an English major who writes, marketing content all day. So again, if you're going to go into a role and you know what you want to do, get those transferable things, those transferable stories, those accomplishments, those buzzwords, which that's what I was going to touch up on. Buzzwords. Now, when you're looking for work these days, there's 1,000 of you for every one role, right? So how are you going to be found and sourced over the other 999? Well, they're going to type in these words. And these words they're finding are coming from hiring manager job descriptions. So the hiring manager goes, find me people with this stuff. And the recruiter goes, okay. And the recruiter goes, what stuff? Oh, I got to write, okay, this stuff. And then they type that stuff. And then your stuff on your resume better be that stuff, because then they're finding you. And the more visibility you get, the higher ranking you get, is based off of how comparable you are to this job description. So use that to your advantage. It's not hidden. You know what the company wants. It's right there in black and white online. So use that to filter some of these missing buzzwords into your resume. Now, don't lie. Number one rule is don't lie. So if you don't have it, don't write it on there. But if you can find any sort of thing that relates to those words, even if you don't have those ones specifically, maybe they want somebody with emergency preparedness planning, and you're like, well, I've done safety planning. Well, then write in some safety stuff. It's kind of there. It's not necessarily emergency preparedness, but you're getting kind of walking a little bit of the same kind of tone. So use anything you really think you can and get it in there, and get these readers excited to get you in the interview room.
That's excellent advice. I'm loving that. My last question for you is, after you get called for the interview, and I'm sure they're doing interviews via Zoom, and I guess some are in person also, but I'm thinking back to what you shared about being an actor, and I'm thinking about the fact that we're in a pandemic and people are anxious and they're stressed out and they need the job. would you suggest that they go into the interview, whether it's on Zoom or in person, as their authentic selves, or should they adopt a little bit of an actor mentality? In other words, put on their best their best game face. So what are your thoughts on that?
Great question. The biggest trend we're seeing in hiring is being genuine. They want people that are genuine. And not to say we didn't want them before, which I don't know how these things come about. Industry trends, I think, are just made up because we need something to talk about. But they're saying that hiring managers are getting more savvy because we've gone through this process, and now we have all these tools in place that are easily able to identify valid candidates now, more than ever, more than just people showing up and dropping off a physical resume, meeting people on site like the old days. So, nowadays recruiters are way more savvy because of the tools we have. So I think it comes down to, they're going to know if you are not a right fit. And no matter how active you want to get, they're going to find out real soon if you do manage to get the job based off of some savvy talking. But be genuine. I go the genuine route. And, during an interview, I say to all my clients, my biggest thing is, I like project talk. And when they talk about something, if they ask you a question about something, talk about a project and a success with the project that relates to that question. And then move on from that project. Don't be redundant. And then the second thing I like is when they eliminate pain points. And these are these things that you hear about. These are not new, but these are things that now you're trying to talk more about at an interview, how you're going to alleviate why they're sitting in the room with you already. Because these hiring managers at 4 p.m. are looking at resumes every day, stopping what they're doing on their operations side to completely hone this other brain. And they don't want to. A lot of them hate hiring. And I know this because I've been in the room with these people back when I was an HR recruiter. So they're always in a hurry, and they always just are knowing that it's a necessary evil. That's kind of my word, I guess, this whole podcast. But a necessary evil because they have this opening, because somebody left and now they got to train someone else. And hiring process, if you think about it, this is the process, right? You're getting an opening. You got to meet with the recruiter. Then you got to post it. Recruiter's got to source people. Then they got to vet them. Then they got to bring them in for an interview. Then they got to vet them some more with more people. Then they got to do a background check. Then they got to do an offer and a negotiation. Then they got to do a final, kind of like orientation. And then they got to train you. And then you're going to be an employee. So all this stuff adds up, time and money and resources that they don't have. So if they lose someone, it's like, oh man, it's a blow, no matter how big your company is. So know that they want you in the interview room first and foremost, or else they wouldn't have brought you in. They're not wasting time to have fun because this guy's got to bring him in and talk about this fishing he enjoys under his hobbies. Like, they don't have time for that. So know that they want you already. So just be genuine. And if how would you say genuine? Genuity?
Your genuineness. Your genuineness.
Is that it? I said this before on a Zoom, and I go, I got to look that up. I guess your genuineness, it will play hard. It will play better to you, because if you're honest about what you don't know, if it's a deal breaker, then it's a deal breaker, and move on. Don't waste their time. I mean, as much as it might have been Google you're interviewing with, but don't waste their time, because clearly there's someone else out there that can help alleviate that pain point that's very detrimental. But if it's something like, you're not a super Excel user, you're a medium one, okay, well, we can work with that. So there's various levels of depth of what needs to have in a candidate that's viable. And so match as many as you can, because there's never a perfect candidate, to be honest with you. There's never someone in there that has all 10 check boxes. So if you got like 8 to 10, you're already, in a good situation. I mean, very rarely you get everyone that has everything. We call those purple squirrels in the recruiting world. And they're very rare. And most of the time you got to relocate them, and they're expensive, and, more, et cetera, et cetera. So, get to that point, be a purple squirrel, get out there, be an expert, learn the industry, read articles, subscribe to newsletters, network with decision makers and thought leaders in the world that are in the industry, join Quora, get on forums about this stuff, and have conversations and live this world. If you want to do something that you're really passionate about, don't just do it 8 to 5, because, you're never going to, you will have your thriving, they call it the ladder. But man, is it going to just be a lot harder for you to get to happiness doing the on and off thing on the brain. I mean, you got people that like really good teachers. I notice I have friends that are teachers, and I know the ones that are not good at and they might be good at teaching in the classroom, but when they get to 5 o'clock, there's happy hour, and there's zero effort in making curriculum after hours for these kids in the class. So, but I see other teachers that are really good and successful. They're out there at night doing more vision boards of how they're going to improve this or improve that, and make the learning better. Those people are going to shine more than you, who's just, it's a necessary evil to get a paycheck. So if you're in that boat where it's 8 to 5 and you're just looking for the paycheck, how valuable is that paycheck to your mental happiness, 5 years from now? And that's the trade-off. So I always say, no matter what, and going back, be genuine in the interview, but once you're done with the interview, and if you get the role, just go and slay your world, because you will find much more happiness if you're thriving and making an impact and bringing new ideas and bringing innovation and communicating and collaborating with people than you will if you're just hiding in the corner hoping no one calls on you, and just trying to get to 5 o'clock.
And so being a purple squirrel, it sounds like, is what everyone should really try to embody. If you really want to make any change in your life, especially if it's a career, show up and show up big. And I like the direction you gave about the buzzwords. So if you're reading a job ad, if it's on LinkedIn or Indeed or wherever it might be, and you see they're looking for certain things, make sure that your resume lines up with those things if you genuinely are a good match for that particular job. Because if you're not, guess what? I would think then you get the job and you're miserable because you can't do those things that they want you to do.
Oh, that's the whole joke, is if you get hired, you're like, I'm not supposed to be here right now. They're going to know eventually, but you're going to collect a paycheck for a few weeks. But then you're looking at, people badmouth you. It's a small world. It's very funny, recruiting, and this whole world we live in is the career people. Excuse me. You can get blacklisted real quick from a handful of people that might have given you better opportunities down the road. So, I mean, not all of them, obviously, but a lot of people can get away with it, but it's just, don't do that, because what's the point of just doing something for a little bit? I mean, unless you really think you can kind of pick it up and all of a sudden start being productive, I mean, good luck to you, because I don't think I've ever really heard much of a success story from someone who kind of joked their way into a job, through an interview, and they just managed to George Clooney the interview, and all of a sudden they're, getting $120,000 a year doing something they don't even know what they're doing. But I mean, they're out there. But don't be those people, because it will come back. It just, genuine and, thought leadership. Again, yeah, be the person giving the advice eventually.
What I would wish for everyone who's going to be listening to this podcast, and just people in general, is that this period of time that has been so tumultuous, and obviously people have died, people are dying, people have lost their businesses, people are really struggling. But what I would wish for everyone is that you find your authentic self throughout this process, that you've been able to really do some soul searching and some internal work to feel confident that you know who you are, and you know what your gifts are, and you know what you have to offer. And even when it comes to your career, you do you be that purple squirrel. That's my new thing, by the way. I love it.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
You can Google it and see all about it.
I definitely will. So, Matt, it is hard to believe we talked in the beginning about how long we were going to talk on the podcast. We're almost an hour in. I think we could easily go another 2 hours.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so, everyone wake up who's driving. I'm sorry.
No, this is all really good information. And I want to have you on my TV and my radio show, because I think what you have to say, from everything we discussed, from your personal life to professional, what you offer to the actor, to this film, to these recommendations, you are a home run, my friend. And I think
thank you.
You have a lot to share. You have a lot of gifts to share with other people.
Oh, thank you. I would absolutely love that. We'll offline, we'll figure out when, so you can tell the audience when they can catch my next shtick. I'll do my Bailey's joke. I don't even remember. I wrote it in like 2005, but it was my best joke back then.
But you don't remember it.
I'll get it up before the on-air one. I'll start off with it.
Good. Well, how about if you share how people can get in touch with you? Obviously, you're all over social media, but what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Thank you for that. Yeah, so if they go to jobstickers.com. It's like pot stickers, but job stickers. That is my blog link and literally on my website. So if they go there, they'll be at my blog, and the website itself will encompass you, and you can get all my contact information and my value offerings and my daily posts. I post anywhere from 2 to 5 pieces of content a day. I'm pretty adamant about that. So blogs and pictures and all sorts of stuff, little interactive things, whatever. So stay up with that if you want to learn just little nuances about what hiring managers and recruiters look for and expert advice, that kind of thing about your job hunt.
So if we go to jobstickers.com, we can work with you to write a professionally written resume. We can also learn how to get all these incredible recommendations, how to at least start the process. And we can learn what it's like to be an improv, someone who's an expert in improv and acting, and also to have their own full motion pic. What is it? Yeah, help me.
Yeah, feature length film. That was the big
I'm writing it down.
Film. Yeah, it was wild. I mean, we made it, 7 years ago, so it took that long through post-production to get where we're at, and through circumstance and hard work and who kind of thing, all met in one epiphany, all kind of came together. Is that what the word I would use? And I got lucky. So they pulled the trigger and said, yeah, we'll put some eyeballs on it for you. So that's what you aspire to do when you're a filmmaker, is get distribution, because otherwise it's a $60,000 piece of intellectual property that just sits on a shelf and no one ever sees, and that's lost money. So to get that was probably my biggest accomplishment in my life. I mean, I would venture to guess, just based off of seeing the numbers that are out there. So I was very happy with that.
That's huge. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And one thing I want to share before we go is, in this crazy time that we're talking about, you and I are now connected. I mean, what a gift that is. So you can make connections with people that you never would have made connections with before, because of the fact that everybody seems to be open to making new connections. So for those of you out there listening, please reach out and connect with somebody, because I just learned so much from you, and everyone else is going to learn this and much more on the other programs. So you are truly an inspiration, Matt. Thank you for being on our program, Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn podcast.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to having you on our other programs as well. So stay tuned for that information. And that is a wrap for today.